The WNBA's Golden Girl has been hiding something devastating from fans, and what we've uncovered will shake you to your core. While the Indiana Fever kept feeding the media those comfortable, day-to-day updates, medical experts behind the scenes were quietly sounding 5 alarm bells about what's really happening to Caitlin Clark's body. We're talking about 3 separate injuries: a groin strain that refuses to heal, compensation patterns destroying her natural movement, and a medical team that sources suggest might be more concerned with protecting ticket sales than protecting their superstar player. The truth we're about to expose will completely change how you see everything that's unfolded this season, and trust me, it's worse than anyone imagined. You see, the public got their first real glimpse behind the curtain when Clark had to make that heartbreaking decision to pull out of her own All-Star game right there in Indianapolis. The hometown crowd was absolutely devastated. But what fans didn't know is that behind closed doors, sports medicine specialists had been predicting this exact scenario for weeks. Dr. Jesse Morse, a highly respected sports physician with decades of experience treating elite athletes, didn't pull any punches when he analyzed her situation for the media. Clark had re-aggravated her right adductor and groin strain, but here's the part that'll blow your mind. This wasn't just some simple re-aggravation like they wanted everyone to believe. This was actually the 3rd documented time the exact same injury had flared up in a matter of months, which in the sports medicine world is a massive red flag suggesting something fundamentally broken about her entire recovery process and treatment protocol. But let's dive deeper into the medical nightmare that Clark has been enduring, because groin injuries in elite athletes aren't remotely comparable to twisted ankles or sore shoulders that weekend warriors deal with. These are incredibly complex soft tissue problems that can transform into chronic, career-threatening nightmares if they're not handled with absolute surgical precision by specialists who truly understand the biomechanics involved. When you're dealing with damage to the adductor muscles, you're essentially messing with the very foundation of explosive athletic movement: the cutting, the jumping, the rapid direction changes, even the most basic running mechanics that make Clark the dynamic force she is on the court. Every single time she stepped onto that hardwood with an unresolved groin issue lurking beneath the surface, she was essentially playing the most dangerous game of Russian roulette imaginable with her entire basketball career and long-term physical well-being. The medical scans that came back this week painted a picture that's both relieving and terrifying at the same time. The good news? No additional structural damage had occurred to complicate an already complex situation. But here's the part that should have everyone in the WNBA front office losing sleep: there was also no meaningful evidence of real, substantial healing taking place. What that means in practical terms is that Clark's body has been stuck in this vicious cycle where the injury never fully resolves, creates compensation patterns that stress other areas, and then re-aggravates under the immense physical demands of professional basketball. It's like trying to build a house on a foundation that's constantly shifting, and eventually, something has to give. The emotional devastation of missing the All-Star game in her home state revealed layers of this story that go far beyond simple physical pain and discomfort. Sources close to Clark's inner circle suggest she had been fighting through various levels of discomfort for weeks, possibly even months, because the pressure to perform and stay visible was absolutely suffocating from every possible angle. The Indiana Fever desperately needed their franchise-saving superstar on the court, generating highlights and wins. The league desperately needed their ratings magnet visible and marketable for sponsors and media partners. Corporate sponsors needed their golden child front and center in every major event and marketing campaign. But what Caitlin Clark actually needed was extended rest, proper rehabilitation with world-class specialists, and medical care that prioritized her long-term health and career longevity over short-term profits and public relations wins. Instead of getting the care she deserved, she got those meaningless, day-to-day updates that became a running joke among fans, and constant expectations to suit up and deliver miracles whenever the team needed a spark. The pressure was so intense that even when her body was screaming for rest, even when medical professionals were expressing private concerns about the wisdom of continued play, the machine kept demanding more from someone who had already given everything she had to give. This kind of exploitation of young talent is exactly what destroys careers before they even reach their full potential. What's truly shocking and should serve as a wake-up call for the entire sports world is how this situation brutally exposes the absolutely massive gap between WNBA player care and the standard of treatment you'd see in the NBA or other major professional sports leagues. If this exact scenario were playing out with LeBron James or Stephen Curry dealing with recurring groin issues and compensation injuries, they'd have an entire army of the world's best specialists at their disposal around the clock. We're talking about cutting-edge recovery technology that costs more than most people's houses: hyperbaric chambers, cryotherapy, stem cell treatments, platelet-rich plasma injections, and team executives who would rather forfeit an entire season than risk their franchise players' long-term career trajectory. But in the WNBA, even their biggest star, even the player single-handedly responsible for unprecedented growth in viewership and attendance, gets treatment that feels more like college-level medical support than what you'd expect from a professional sports organization. The infrastructure simply isn't built to protect and nurture generational talents like Clark. And her body is paying the ultimate price for that institutional failure. It's not just about money, though that's certainly part of it. It's about priorities, expertise, and having systems in place that can handle the unique demands placed on elite athletes. The travel alone tells the whole story. While NBA stars fly private and have recovery time built into their schedules, WNBA players are often cramming into commercial flights, dealing with layovers and delays, sleeping in airport terminals, and then expected to perform at the highest level the next night. When you're dealing with a groin injury that requires careful management of movement patterns and stress loads, that kind of travel schedule is basically a recipe for disaster. Every uncomfortable airplane seat, every rushed connection, every night of poor sleep compounds the problem and makes real recovery nearly impossible. The specialists she's reportedly consulting with aren't your average team doctors who might see a few professional athletes among their regular patient load. We're talking about physicians who have worked with MVP-level players, who understand the unique biomechanical demands of elite basketball, who have access to treatments and technologies that most athletes never even hear about. Regenerative medicine experts who can use advanced stem cell therapies, soft tissue specialists who can identify and correct compensation patterns before they become bigger problems, strength and conditioning gurus who know how to rebuild an athlete's movement patterns from the ground up. This is the kind of comprehensive, no-expense-spared approach that Clark should have had access to from day one, but had to seek out on her own when the system failed her. The ripple effects of Clark's injury saga and her response to it extend far beyond one player's recovery timeline and have the potential to fundamentally reshape how business is conducted in women's professional basketball. Fans who invested emotionally and financially in following her journey are starting to ask uncomfortable but necessary questions about how the league actually treats its biggest stars when the cameras aren't rolling. Sports media members are beginning to dig deeper into WNBA medical protocols, travel conditions, and support systems, often finding them woefully inadequate compared to other professional leagues. Even fellow players throughout the league are watching this situation closely, taking notes on how it unfolds, and preparing to demand better treatment and support systems for themselves. Clark's situation has essentially become a public referendum on whether women's professional basketball is truly ready to support and protect the caliber of superstars it desperately needs to grow and thrive in an increasingly competitive sports entertainment landscape. The league has spent years talking about wanting to reach the next level, wanting to command respect and attention, wanting to build sustainable growth and mainstream appeal, but when their most marketable player, their biggest draw, their clearest path to mainstream relevance needs proper medical care and support, the system shows its true limitations. But here's what makes this entire story even more compelling and gives hope for the future. Caitlin Clark isn't backing down, isn't retreating, isn't letting this setback define or diminish her ambitions. Despite missing significant playing time, despite the physical setbacks that would crush many athletes' confidence, despite the organizational failures and systemic problems surrounding her, she's positioning herself not just as a player but as a genuine force for positive change throughout the sport, the medical team she's assembling, the standards she's demanding, the way she's handling her recovery process. It's all methodically setting a completely new blueprint for how WNBA superstars should be treated, supported, and protected. Other players throughout the league are absolutely taking notes on every aspect of how Clark is handling this crisis, from her media strategy to her medical choices to her business decisions. Young players coming up through college are watching to see if the professional level can actually support their dreams and ambitions. The league's front office better be paying attention too, because the next generation of superstars won't be as patient or as willing to accept substandard treatment if they see that speaking up and demanding better actually works. The uncomfortable truth that nobody in WNBA front offices wants to publicly acknowledge is that they came dangerously close to completely breaking their most valuable asset before her rookie season was even finished. This wasn't just any player dealing with injury problems. Clark wasn't just the unanimous Rookie of the Year. She was literally the primary reason that half the league's games suddenly started selling out for the first time in years. She was the driving force behind record-breaking television ratings that had network executives scrambling to secure more WNBA broadcast rights. She was the first player in the league's history to make women's basketball appointment viewing for casual sports fans who had never paid attention to the WNBA before. Her jersey sales didn't just lead the WNBA, they competed with and often surpassed sales figures for male athletes in major professional sports leagues. Social media engagement around the league skyrocketed specifically because of content featuring Clark. Attendance at road games jumped dramatically in cities where she was scheduled to play. Corporate sponsors who had never shown interest in women's basketball suddenly wanted partnerships and marketing deals. The economic impact of her presence in the league was measurable, quantifiable, and absolutely unprecedented. Yet when her body started sending unmistakable distress signals, when the medical warning signs were flashing red, the institutional response was to manage the public relations optics rather than manage the actual injury with the seriousness it deserved. Team officials focused on crafting messaging that wouldn't alarm fans or sponsors rather than ensuring their superstar got the world-class medical care that someone of her value and importance should automatically receive. It's a classic case of being penny-wise and pound-foolish, of protecting short-term interests while risking long-term catastrophe. What happens next in this saga will define not just Clark's individual career trajectory, but potentially the entire future direction of women's professional basketball as an entertainment product and business venture. If she manages to come back stronger, healthier, and more empowered than ever before, armed with her own world-class support system and a new understanding of her value and leverage, it could force the kinds of systemic changes that would benefit every single player in the league for generations to come: better medical protocols, improved travel conditions, enhanced recovery resources, more comprehensive support systems. All the infrastructure improvements that should have existed long before. Someone of Clark's caliber arrived to expose the deficiencies. But the bigger, more important question isn't simply whether she'll return to her previous form physically, it's whether the league, its teams, and its power structure will evolve quickly enough to deserve her when she does make her comeback. Because make no mistake about what's really happening here, Caitlin Clark isn't just passively healing from an injury and waiting for someone else to fix the problems around her. She's actively and strategically preparing to revolutionize how superstars operate within women's professional sports, how they protect themselves, how they leverage their value, and how they demand the treatment and respect they've earned.